from the Washington, D.C. area. It's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. I'm Jeff Barnett. This is the Inside Scoop. Thank you very much for joining us. Tonight, we're getting the Inside Scoop from two conservative Republican candidates for the United States Congress, Howie Lind and Rob Wasinger. Both are running for the Republican nomination in Virginia's 10th Congressional District. The firehouse primary for that is on Saturday, April 26th. And for people that are living in Fairfax County, the two locations will be at Langley High School and at Centerville High School.
That's correct.
Is that right, Howie?
That's right.
Well, Howie, I got to ask the question. I mean, the popularity of Congress right now is below that of used car salesmen. The president's numbers keep going down. So running for Congress is a huge enterprise. So why are you running?
I'm running for the United States Congress because it's time to take a stand. It really is time to take a stand against Barack Obama and his destruction of our country, economically, militarily, and culturally. I really believe that. And it's time to take a stand against his left-wing agenda and the massive spending and debt that's been going on for the last several years. I'm the only military veteran in this race, so the national defense and military issues I really care about also. But the economy, Obamacare, unemployment, those are the major issues that are facing us and are hurting our country now. So it's really taking a stand, and not just against Obama, but within our own party to stand up to say, hey, you know, let's stop and redirect our nation at this point.
So Obamacare, the economy, national defense. Let's just pick one of those. National defense. You know, we're both veterans.
Right.
You were in the Navy,
Right.
retired commander, surface warfare officer,
Correct.
right?
That's right. That's right.
So what is on your defense agenda?
Well, I think our military and our national defense is hurting. It's just a couple weeks ago that the Pentagon announced massive, huge cuts to the United States Army, which I believe are harmful to our nation's national security. But I think overall, from foreign relations, our foreign policy is not in good shape. Speak of Russia for a minute. I mean, we're just spectators on the world stage, I think, with the events that are happening over there, but also other places around the world. There's a very dangerous world environment, and with our national defenses cut, reducing, and our foreign policy that's really adrift, I feel strongly that we need a stronger military and defense. One issue that still gets to me every time I say the word is Benghazi. It's 18 months. We still don't have the answers as to what happened over there in Benghazi a year and a half ago. I'm strongly with Frank Wolf, our Congressman Frank Wolf, who's been trying to get a special investigative committee together for over a year. He's been stopped in Congress. He has over 180 signatures to do this, but Speaker John Boehner, for some unknown reason, is not allowing him to do that. I signed a letter recently, co-signed a letter with many retired military senior officers demanding John Boehner appoint this committee so he can get to the bottom of the Benghazi atrocity. Our U.S. ambassador murdered on September 11, 2012, plus the 3 other brave Americans over there. Those the terrorists, have still not been held to account yet. And I call it the cover-up back here in Washington. Nothing's been held to account for those people either.
Are you saying that there's a cover-up about not going after the perpetrators?
I believe it's a cover-up from the whole what happened. I mean, this video was a ridiculous video. We know that wasn't the reason for the actual attack on the embassy. But from the pre-intelligence to the actual attack that went on for many, many hours, and our U.S. military, there's huge assets all around the Middle Eastern region, and they were military assets en route, different times, and were told to stand down from protecting our own Americans that were under attack. It's just unconscionable. Who told them to stand down and why? And it just really gripes me there.
Let's focus on national defense. You said that you wanted that the funding plan for national defense is not where you want to have it. Looking at some numbers, we're kind of at the $650 billion a year for national defense. On 9/11 of 2001, we were at about 300 billion. I mean, or a little bit more. So we're double what we were then. Would you like to see that number go up from where it is now, or do you want to have adjustments within the defense program?
I think adjustments and proper leadership too. The morale of the military is one aspect is not affected by numbers. But I agree with you. The military it's a high number, but we need as a Navy guy more ships, Air Force more planes. And Army, it's troop strength. So I think the numbers can go up a little bit, but it's really what you do with them, what our country views as their military strength. You know, I'm not saying put troops all around the world in different spots, but I'm saying smartly, for instance, this Russia environment over there, we should have had, my view, Navy assets, Air Force assets in place in that region when this was happening to try to influence Putin. I don't think we're influencing anybody, or certainly not him right now in the world.
You know, it's kind of amazing. The Ukrainians have not shown a willingness to fight for their country. So why should we fight for their country? Well,
no, I'm not saying we put our U.S. troops on the ground over there, but I think the Ukrainians, we can provide them aid. We can provide them military equipment and money to fight. I think they do want to fight. I mean, certainly they're cowed by Putin. He's a big bully. You know, he's going to could cut off the energy to them and as well as the rest of the European nations. So we really need to stand up. There's economic sanctions that we could make really right now could be tough on Russia that we're not.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the economy. A lot of the energy in this administration has gone towards Obamacare and not towards the economy, at least the visibility of it. So how would you measure economic progress, and what would you do to get there?
Well, measuring, I think it's just flat. I mean, we're not, companies and businesses, they should be growing, they should be flourishing. We should have lots of jobs for Americans that want to work that are unemployed or underemployed. 15% unemployment is way too high for this country. Obamacare, I believe it's a flawed law. It impacts everything really, not just health care, but people's lives through their jobs. If companies are being forced now to reduce and to shift and to do different things, higher taxes, higher regulations, causes them to reduce employees or employees' hours. So people are losing their becoming part-time workers or no-time workers if they lose their job. But I mean, overall, the economy can be doing a lot better. So I guess just generally, lower taxes, lower regulations to let companies grow. There's certain segments of the population that are just being totally left behind. Minorities, particularly, the Black and Hispanic community unemployment rates are very high. In youth communities, I know we both have grown children, but that they're luckily mine are employed, but their peers are struggling quite a bit. So it's there's a lot that we can do better with this economy that's just not happening right now.
So deregulation and lower taxes is kind of where you want to go. But I mean, we did that under the George W. Bush years, and we were left with an economy in free fall and with oil spills and the rest. So I guess it's always a balance that you have to strike. Can you give me some examples about how you would change that balance?
Well, great example. You mentioned energy. Let's talk about that. We could have thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of more jobs in this country right now with a solid energy plan of exploring and harnessing our own natural resources within the United States. The Keystone Pipeline, that's a no-brainer. That should be approved. But not just that.
But Keystone Pipeline that's Canadian stuff going down to ports on the Gulf for export. So I mean, there's not too many jobs there.
Well, there's lots of jobs between up there and down, top to bottom.
Canada?
Canada through the pipeline, down through the country to the Gulf of Mexico down there. But natural gas, we're the world's leader. We could be the world's leader in petroleum reserves in this country. We don't even know in some cases how big the reserves are. Coal. Virginia, I mean, we're right on top. We're in southwest and south side Virginia, huge coal reserves there. The Obama administration had declared a war on coal years ago, and so a lot of coal plants have been shut down. We should be the nation's leader in coal. in Virginia. Not just that, nuclear power is it's a very low cost, safe source of energy that we should be using across our country. So that any energy is
nuclear power is what, 20% of our electrical output? Would you want to go higher than that?
Oh, sure. I mean, we should be using everything that we can to not import anything from the outside and use all of our resources within the borders. So it's almost a two-prong. It lowers energy costs for Americans, maybe at the gas pump, hopefully at the gas pump, but also provides lots of jobs, not just within our shores, off our shorelines. There's lots of reserves off our shorelines that are environmentally safe, not impacting on the environment.
Well, that's where you get is the environmentally safe,
right?
And that's the question, right? And so can we mine more coal and use more coal, and still not damage the environment?
My answer is yes. Okay, it's not like it was 50 or 100 years ago. These technologies have advanced greatly over the last decades, where it is very safe.
Okay. We've got a couple more minutes before the break.
Yeah.
Why don't you take a couple seconds and just kind of tell us about yourself? Give us your background.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, grew up in McLean, here in Fairfax County. Went to Langley High School and then to Virginia Tech. Hokies, you always got to plug the Hokies there.
Played baseball? Played
baseball there. Still love the game. In fact, going to the home opener of the Nationals Park a week from Friday. A great Nationals grew up with the Washington Senators, of course. They left a long time ago, and the Nationals are back, so I'm a fan of theirs. But after Virginia Tech, became an officer in the United States Navy for 20 years, served as a naval officer all over the world on 5 different ships. I was on cruisers, destroyers, and frigates, and worldwide deployments, and I had a great career for 20 years, and then retired and moved back up here from Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads, where I spent many years. That's where I have 4 grown daughters, and 2 of them are married and live down there. In fact, had 2 grandbabies last fall. So,
and you were in business here in McLean?
Since retiring from the Navy, I've been working in 2 different defense capacities in defense industry, but then also a Bush administration appointee for 4 years at the Pentagon. And then later in that time period became involved in the state party leadership for the Republicans, and then got into the...
Very good.
So...
Well, I'm Jeff Barnett. I'm here talking with Howie Lind. Howie is running for the United States Congress in Virginia's 10th Congressional District. The primary is a firehouse primary, and it's on Saturday, the 26th
That's correct.
Of April. And we'll be back in about 2 minutes, again, talking with Howie Lind, candidate for Congress.
This year, 28,000 Americans will be diagnosed with oral cancer. Every year, 7,000 Americans die of oral cancer.
I'm Eva Cohen, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I didn't fit the profile. I didn't smoke or drink. I had no family history of cancer, no family history of cancer. I was 31 years old. I went to see my dentist about a sore in my mouth that wouldn't heal. It was oral cancer. I had to have a radical neck dissection and a portion of my tongue reconstructed. I didn't know if I was going to live or die.
I'm Surgeon General Richard Carmona. The survival rate for oral cancer is only 50%. Oral cancer can happen to anyone. If you have a sore or lesion in your mouth that doesn't heal within 2 weeks, see your dentist. Early detection is the key.
Early detection saves lives. I know.
1 in 8 Americans goes hungry. One idea helped change that. A community started a garden that blossomed into farmers markets. 1 in 6 children lives in poverty. One group of women found an answer by opening a daycare center that their neighbors could afford. Today, 36 million Americans live in poverty. But one by one, people are helping themselves and each other to change the picture of poverty to one of hope. For easy ways you can help, visit povertyusa.org.
2 words for you. Pop quiz. Ready? Name any funny movie. A drama. Name a mystery. And one more thing. Name the movie your kids saw today in science class.
Know what really matters. Know about your kid's school. And know about your kid. Find out 100
Here
ways
again,
to know more.
the Inside Scoop, Virginia.
Welcome back. I'm Jeff Barnett. We're here talking with Howie Lind, candidate for the United States Congress in Virginia's 10th Congressional District. The 10th District spans right across the top of Virginia from McLean and Fairfax out to the West Virginia border past Winchester. It also includes Manassas and, of course, all of Loudoun County. Lots of big issues, but obviously, Howie, one of the biggest divides between the two parties is Obamacare. So, what's your position on Obamacare? And if it's to get rid of it, how would you replace it?
Great question, Jeff. That Obamacare really is the biggest drag on our economy now. And it's, again, not just on the economy, but on people's livelihoods with their work. So let's talk about the work for a second and get back to how it affects them personally. Companies are being stressed and stretched to these new regulations that are being forced on them by Obamacare, so that they're having to reduce hours of their employees, so they're going from full-time to part-time to no time, and that's very hurtful on people. As far as individually, it's impacting them. They were told they could keep their doctor and they could keep their insurance plans. Well, they can't, so there's a lot of turmoil among the populace. As far as what to do with it, there's a lot of talk about how to reform it, how to, what to do. My feeling is to replace it. And I say rip it out by the roots, and I don't mean to be pejorative, but we're Americans. We can do great things, and we have the best health care in the world. We had the best health care in the world, so why would we put up with this? I call it the unconstitutional abuse in our lives. So what to do in its place? I mean, the free market reforms for health care work. They have worked, and they can work in the future again. I'm open for all sorts of whatever the best market plans could be, and let people decide between doctors and patients, decide what's best for them. So I guess the bottom line is the government standing between your doctor and yourself and patients, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, let's peel that back a little bit. The individual mandate for Obamacare, its big reason is in order to take care of pre-existing conditions. So how would you take care of pre-existing conditions in a non-Obamacare world?
Well, I mean, again, not to make it sound simplistic, but that can be done without federalizing 1/6 of the U.S. economy. We can work on pre-existing conditions. We can work on people without health insurance. I mean, there's a sizable population, maybe 20%. We don't know exactly, but we, the United States Americans, we can figure out how to insure those people. We can figure out how to insure pre-existing conditions and the other parts, some good parts of Obamacare. But I guess it's just it's a huge mess, and I think it should be replaced.
Lifetime limits. I mean, the same thing. Part of the reasons why people lost their previous plans were removed was that they didn't allow for they put lifetime limits on policies, or they did not meet the core requirements. So again, how do we get there? I mean, part of the reason for this Rubik's Cube of Obamacare is in order to meet all these little gates.
I don't want to get down in too far in the weeds, other than to say that the market opportunities can fix a lot of these. And so, I know it might be a cliche, but it's not. I mean, medical savings accounts, that's one area where I agree with. You can start as soon as you're born, you can sign up, have an MSA attached to you, and with a catastrophic plan attached also.
Would there be a requirement to do that?
No, that's just one idea, and there's many ideas out there. So I guess it's just, I mean, let's get back to the way this was formed originally 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think in the United States history has a major life-changing piece of legislation like Obamacare been passed in the U.S. Congress with 0 opposition votes from the other party. I mean, there should have been collaboration, deciding how to move forward on this. I mean, now you see, you've seen it in the last year or so, the president himself has been stripping out the parts that he doesn't like or people are complaining about, rather than having this, done correctly years ago and passed properly.
Okay. Border security. secure borders. That's a big issue for you. You've signaled that out.
Right.
The number of unauthorized immigrants in America has stayed pretty constant since about '06. We've doubled the number of border guards. President Obama is getting hit from the left on the number of deportations. I guess 2 million so far. So what needs to be done in addition to that?
Well, my feeling is on border security, not just the whole illegal immigration aspect, is really secure the southern border. I mean, there's been a lot of numbers thrown around, but there's still, our border is not secure down there. So I mean, I call it we're not a sovereign nation unless our border is secure. And one of my previous companies I worked for bid on a big contract on the southern border called the Secure Border Initiative. This was about 6 years ago. Didn't win the contract, but I followed it closely. It was a huge, big federal program within the Department of Customs and Border Protection. But it was an abject failure because I think that the Obama administration didn't want it to succeed almost. It just kept failing. Now it's just been canceled. So secure the southern border. It's not secure. The second point is the visas, unexpired visas. If you look at all the illegal immigrants in the country now, 40% of them are here on expired visas. So there's not, within the ICE or Customs Border Protection, there's not a system to track these people with expired visas. Why not? Why don't we have a system in place where they can track illegals and, say, hey, okay, time's up. So
the DREAM Act, where the children of unauthorized immigrants who were brought in here and raised here, what's your take on that?
Well, it's really a sad situation where all these people have come in attached to them. Chain migration is the term used, where somebody comes and then they bring their families in, and more family, and they live in. I mean, it's just hard conditions in some of these places in areas around the country. They would have a much better life at home, where their original country was, rather than being shoved into some of these really bad areas. When Republicans talk about this, we get branded, we get called all sorts of names. I'm not any of that. I don't hate anybody. I'm for a free, working American economy and society. That's one aspect of this. Is whenever the illegal immigration issue is talked about, is what about American workers and American jobs? Because there's a huge amount of, like we just talked about earlier, minorities in this country, citizens that are unemployed that can be employed with American jobs, good American jobs.
Abortion, pro-life, pro-choice. You're hard pro-life, and I would suspect for both religious and social reasons. Can you, for a second, kind of focus on the social reasons for your position?
I'm pro-life. I believe that life is from the moment of conception is life, and that it should be protected. I mean, if you think about it, from our founding document, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, there's no asterisk after life except for babies. I mean, we are a society that should protect all aspects of life. With 4 grown daughters, but now, actually when they were born, seeing them born, and now with their 2 granddaughters, it's just a hard thought to even think about that whole procedure that's allowed in this country under abortion, where it's some areas all the way up to almost birth where abortion is legal.
Well, the Supreme Court said you can't go that far. It's the 3rd trimester. Once a fetus is viable outside the womb, then you can't.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Well, I'm pro-life, and I don't want to get into even talking about that. It's just such a horrific.
But you believe that this is a proper role for government to make the decision for people.
I believe that we should be protecting life from conception to natural death, and I think we could be doing a lot better job with adoption in this country. Instead of having people try to go overseas to Russia or Ukraine, where people have tried before, let's make adoption easy, a lot easier in this country, so people that don't want to have keep their child can give it up for adoption. So
all right.
Okay.
Thing about making things easy. Well, it's easy to buy a gun. So, the Second Amendment. Why do you believe that there's such a split, people? Let's just talk about background checks. How do you fall on that issue?
I think I'm pro Second Amendment, and I think that the Americans and Virginians, and certainly within the 10th District, are very much in favor of being able to lawfully, legally carry, purchase, and own their own firearm. So, background check. I mean, I feel that it's within reason, but sometimes when people talk about background checks, it's usually okay, well, let's line them all up and figure out where they live and where their addresses are and such. It's a legal instrument that they can buy and keep and bear under the Constitution. So I don't really like to get into the idea of, well, let's register everybody and figure out how to confiscate their firearms. That's not what this country was founded on. And really, I think generally Americans, law-abiding citizens, that every time some massive massacre happens, there are always talk about more gun laws. We have plenty of gun laws on the books now. Just we don't need more. And law-abiding citizens don't cause these massacres to happen. It's unlaw-abiding citizens that cause those to happen.
Okay, but on background checks, if I go to the Walmart and buy a weapon, then I have to do a background check. Mm-hmm. But if I go to the Dulles Expo and buy it at a gun show, mm-hmm. I don't. Is there a logic there?
I don't know. I feel again that it's that people have the right to buy and carry a firearm. So I'm pro Second Amendment.
First Amendment, we have about a minute left here. So can you just give us a quick deal on your website? You make a big thing out of protecting the First Amendment, as we all should. Mm-hmm. Why is that such a big? Why is that one of your major platforms?
Well, I think all the amendments, starting with the first, freedom of speech, religion, ability to redress grievances with your government, that's the foundation for the others. Second Amendment that we just talked about, the Fourth Amendment, the right of undue search and seizure. Let's just change topics real quick here. NSA spying scandal, that's a huge issue for me, and that really is affected by the First Amendment too. Can I just final with saying it's time to take a stand? That's my theme, and I'm sticking to it. Howie Lind for Congress.
Howie, wonderful talking with you. Best of luck.
Thanks,
April
Jeff.
26th is the primary. I'm Jeff Barnett, and we've been talking with Howie Lind, candidate for the United States Congress in Virginia's 10th District.
There's more than just books at the library.
There's more than just books at the library.
Excuse me. There's more than just books at the library.
Il n'y a plus que de livres à la bibliothèque.
Of great books here today. You know there's more than just books at the library.
I know.
There's more than just books at the library.
I don't want to be hooked to a machine.
I want all the medical treatment available to me.
I wouldn't want my family to have to make this decision.
My doctor knows what's best for me.
An advance directive is your life on your terms. Talk with your family. Decide what's right for you. Then put it in writing.
Documenting my wishes today means my family won't have to make heart-wrenching decisions later.
To learn more, visit www.putitinwriting.org.
1,200 American youth run away from their homes every day. The National Runaway Switchboard is here to help. 1-800-RUNAWAY. If you are a runaway, thinking about running away from home, or a parent or guardian concerned about issues facing your child, call us 24 hours a day. 1-800-RUNAWAY. In times of crisis, hope is
Here again, the Inside Scoop, Virginia.
Welcome back. I'm Jeff Barnett. Welcome to the second half of our show. Now we're talking with Rob Wasinger, who is running for the United States Congress, also in Virginia 10. Rob is a, I'm sorry, did I say Ron? I'm very sorry. Rob is styled as a conservative Republican. He is a resident of Fairfax Station. Before we get going and into really the issues, Rob, welcome to the show, and just tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks, Jeff. It's great to be here today. Really enjoy the chance to talk to the voters, and especially over television. So I'd like to thank all the people that are watching today. I'm running, to restore some responsibility to government. I think things have gotten out of whack the past few years, and I think we're kind of in the midst of a political revolution, if you will. If you look at the way the votes have been going the last 6 years, about 50% of the House Republican caucus has been elected just recently. And I think that's kind of taking things over a little bit. And they're going to change leadership and, insert some new independence in how government works. And it's an exciting trend. And it is that revolution, I think, that's transforming America.
And it's to join that revolution is why you jumped into this race?
Yeah, I think so. You hear about all this spending that's just out of control out there. Some just crazy things like the International Trade Association. They just sent $300,000 to the American Independent Music Association. Now, this is an industry that made $7.1 billion just last year. And they gave them $300,000 to go on a world tour to promote independent music. That's just ridiculous. They don't need our money to do that. They have plenty of their own. But to go after those projects and cut them out of the budget. And the problem is it's not the Democrats supporting those things, it's the Republicans too. So we need to shake things up and take Congress back.
And again, back from whom?
Back from the establishment. I think the establishment, there's really no difference between a lot of Democrats and Republicans right now. And to get it back to the people. The Democrats, like I said, the Democrats, Republicans, they're the ones voting on these budgets. They're the ones voting on the spending. Like the Ryan Murray budget plan on the debt ceiling. That was another time where Democrats and Republicans really sold out a lot of America on the debt ceiling and getting spending under control. And we just can't sit back and wait to fight some other day. We've got to get in there and fight now.
If the debt ceiling if you're elected and the debt ceiling comes up for being raised, right, would you vote for that?
I would not vote to increase the debt ceiling, and I think we need to do more. A debt ceiling is an automatic enforcement on balancing the budget and getting spending under control. So that's a good mechanism we have and a good tool to just rein in spending. And even when we tried to do it with a little bit of sequestration, again, the establishment came out and a lot of the sequestration didn't even hold. So that's the fight we've got to get engaged in, getting the spending under control.
Well, the Ryan Murray deal did not touch entitlements. And entitlements are really, I would assert, are the real driver in spending. Mm-hmm. What would you do, entitlements, so now we're talking about military pensions, federal pensions, Social Security, Medicare. What would you do about entitlements?
Well, entitlements definitely need reform. I mean, as you know, there's discretionary spending, which is, defense, labor, health, education, all those other things that Congress routinely votes on. And then there's the mandatory spending, things like Medicare, Social Security, all the other things that you mentioned, that Congress doesn't vote on at all. That stuff just happens every single year with every budget cycle that goes forward. So we do need to get into entitlement reform. I think everybody, especially in my generation and younger, knows or expects that we're not going to get a whole lot of money from Social Security when we reach retirement. So that's another program that definitely needs to be reformed. And things like investment-based savings accounts, kind of following the Roth IRA, something to get our savings out of the government hands and into the hands of individuals would be a good way to start reforming the entitlements, especially on Social Security.
So one of the things you would do is privatize part of Social Security anyway.
Well, I didn't say privatize. I mean, I think we've got
the Roth IRA type.
Well, it's not privatized per se. I think there still has to be that level of government security that you've got so that nobody falls through the cracks. And we've got to assure that everybody that has benefits coming and that they've paid into are going to get those benefits. I think for younger generations, though, you can give an option to invest in the marketplace. And that's something that would yield a higher rate of return. Social Security's rates of returns are well below market rates. And that would be a way to kind of, capitalize on the growth of the economy and help shore up Social Security so it can go on into the future.
As I looked at your website and also saw your appearance at the debate in Winchester, was that about 2 weeks ago now or so? Tax code, Obamacare, border security, Second Amendment, and protecting life? Are those kind of your
Yeah,
visceral issues?
those are the themes of the campaign, and I'd say really, I mean, the overarching theme is, I believe, as a party and as a government, we need to build roads for infrastructure and defend our country and get out of our life. I think we need to restore some liberty in this country and protect rights in a way that we haven't recently.
But okay, so if you have roads and defense, what about Centers for Disease Control?
Well, those things are important roles to play. CDC certainly does a great job protecting our health and welfare. Great research goes on at the NIH. What I'm talking is kind of getting back to fundamentals, and whenever we step outside of those fundamentals, there needs to be a very good, compelling reason for the government to become involved. And NIH and CDC would be two good examples.
And others, are there others?
I think there are other examples, but for example, I think Department of Education should be eliminated. I think Department of Commerce has become a boondoggle for
let's go back in education.
Sure.
A big piece of what Department of Education does is it administers the Pell Grant program. So would you cut out Pell Grants, or would you move that function somewhere else?
Well, we can take all these things on a case-by-case basis. Pell Grants are also good, but the thing is federal government, as it's gotten more involved in education, it's been a cost driver for education, and education is now completely out of control in terms of spending and the cost, making it inaccessible to a lot of people. I wouldn't necessarily have a problem getting rid of a lot of the programs right now at Department of Education, because I think they are cost drivers. It just goes in the bottom line of the universities, and they just increase that amount because they know it's secured.
Okay. Tax code. Dave Camp, House Ways and Means, came out with a tax code that just has three levels and then gets rid of a lot of deductions. So, do you have a take on where you see the tax code going?
Well, I think the tax code has a lot of problems. There still exists in the tax code residual bracket creep. We fixed a lot of it with the CPI, but if you look at how Social Security is handled, there's still a productivity index. So you still have the residual bracket creep because that does not apply to the regular tax brackets. So I would include productivity gains in the way the brackets are indexed. I'd also flatten them. And I think one area where Republicans have failed when they talk about taxes is we've gotten so hung up in corporate taxes and some of these deductions and loopholes that corporations are taking care of. And I think we need to talk more to, everyday Americans that are struggling right now, that are scared about the future and their jobs, and talk about taxes that affect everybody else. And, flattening the brackets would be one thing to do.
And would you go to just a single flat tax?
I'd support a single flat tax. I think a fair tax would be fine too.
And a fair tax being what?
You work out the rate, but a sales, based tax, a consumption-based tax on goods and services. There are some concerns that people have about, whether or not that becomes a little bit regressive at the higher ends. I have those concerns too, but I think we can address them in terms of setting
regressive at the lower ends.
Regressive at the lower ends. That's correct. It doesn't maintain a progressive structure the way our current tax system does.
Yeah. Interestingly, we do have a flat tax in so many different ways. Virginia's income tax is a flat tax.
Alternative minimum tax is a flat tax, but it doesn't kick in until the higher rates.
Tax. Your car is a flat tax. Corporations have a flat tax with a lot of deductions. Really, the only place where we really have a progressive tax is in personal income tax. It's only that one part of the code. We have about 4 minutes before the first break. 4 minutes is plenty of time to talk about Obamacare.
Sure.
So tell us what your position is on Obamacare, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Well, we need to repeal Obamacare. I think it's so broken that it can't be tinkered with or fixed in some way. It's just got to be thrown out. We can start over. And what I think is interesting about the way Obamacare has been implemented is they even know it's broken. Democrats know it's broken. And that's why he's constantly extending deadlines and pushing it out past election cycles. Look, that was passed kind of, in the dead of night after the country had already spoken with the election, well, Massachusetts anyway, not exactly a Republican state, had spoken with the election of Scott Brown. And yet Obama pushed through this health care plan, which is, the most radical change in the way health care works in this country that we've ever seen. A radical rewrite of how we order ourselves as citizens and pay for health care. So, and it hasn't worked. There's still a lot of people that are uninsured. It's hurting small businesses.
Well, wait a minute. It really hasn't been implemented yet.
Well, do you think the healthcare.gov website launch has worked well?
I think that it's kind of amazing that a company like CGI Federal, whose sole area of expertise is to win federal contracts, got that contract. The whole contracting system in federal government is a mess. I agree
with that.
That's where I would start.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the implementation's been messed up. The way the vote happened, the implementation of it, and the very fact that there's a need to constantly delay major elements of Obamacare is another indication that the homework simply has not been done. And then we've got the Hobby Lobby Supreme Court case coming up. And this is still unraveling. I think the judicial system is going to have a lot to say in terms of Obamacare and its role and how it fits with society. As an ex-congressman, my vote's to repeal it and move to more private, market-based solutions to healthcare. And again, federal government's a cost driver on healthcare too, and we've got to, get that out.
Can you give us an idea of how you would take care of pre-existing conditions in some sort of a rubric that's not called Obamacare?
Well, I think, a lot of Americans struggle with the pre-existing conditions and their health care coverage. I think there's a solution out there that you can find that's not going to, penalize healthcare companies so they're, not losing money because they have their own risk pool they have to manage. But certain things have to be covered regardless. And diabetes, lots of stories. Those things have to be covered. So there's got to be that safety net again for all Americans so that you don't have people falling through the cracks. Nobody in this country should be denied coverage because they have a pre-existing condition.
But if you don't have but the counter argument is that if you don't have a mandate to buy coverage, then people will just wait until they get a problem and then buy it.
I think the marketplace was already moving to address some of those issues. If you look back over the healthcare debate over the last 20 years, there was a lot of movement to take care of these issues with people that had these problems. The horror stories of people that can't get coverage because of pre-existing condition, are very compelling. And the marketplace needs to move faster on some of these things, and there's no question about that.
So you would go for a more market-based approach for this as opposed to a government orchestrated approach?
That's right.
Okay. We're here talking with Rob Wasinger, candidate for the United States Congress from Virginia's 10th Congressional District. The 10th District goes right across the top of Virginia, and it includes Loudoun County is about 41% of it. Fairfax County is about a third. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Osama bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
before terrorists steal them.
Why did we learn all this?
My mother,
my son,
my sister-in-law
were all murdered September 11th.
Help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
for all.
In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America. Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list. Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD booster. If it's been 10, do it again. Here again,
The Inside Scoop, Virginia.
Welcome back. I'm Jeff Barnett, and I'm here talking with Rob Wasinger, candidate for the United States Congress from Virginia's 10th Congressional District. Again, the 10th District goes right across the top of Virginia, from McLean on the east to the West Virginia border on the west, and down to Manassas in the south. Rob is one of 6 candidates for the Republican nomination. There'll be a firehouse primary on the 26th, Saturday the 26th.
That's right.
Of April. And in Fairfax County, the 2 polling places for that will be at Centerville High School and at Langley High School. Before the break, you mentioned Hobby Lobby. That's a Supreme Court, I don't know if it's a Supreme Court case or if it's a candidate for it. But there, the issue is one where the core requirements for Obamacare include contraception coverage, and the owners of Hobby Lobby say that that is conflicting with their religious liberties, forcing them to, in essence, subsidize contraception. So what's your position on that?
Well, I think, religious freedom and religious liberty needs to be respected, and I think it's unfair for the administration, the government, to compel somebody to do or to undertake an activity that they morally object to. And the issue is broader than contraception. I think the issue is whether or not government can use its power to force an individual to do, and in this case a corporation, to do something that they morally object to.
Well, if I was a Christian Scientist, and I believe that God should dispense medical care, not a hospital, we don't allow you to make that decision for your kids. So government does involve itself there.
Well, I think that might be a little too simplistic. I mean, contraception is a lifestyle choice. It's not a life-saving medical intervention that somebody can make in the case of an individual. And so I think that distinction is important. What we're talking about here is the government using its coercive power to force people to pay for lifestyle decisions, not important medical care.
Government also, if I was a Quaker who was against warfare, I would object to my tax money being used to pay for the military. But again, I think in America we kind of have a split between this kind of shared responsibility that you don't really have that, because you can't control everything that your government does.
Well, and again, taking issue with the Quakers, I mean, one of the roles of the government is to defend our country, which I think we need to do and provide for aggressively. It's one of the things in the Constitution. It's part of being a citizen of this country. Now, there are conscientious objector provisions, of course, but again,
that's for service, but not for payment.
Well, but I mean, this is a difference. What we're talking about here is a lifestyle decision, not medical care itself per se.
Okay. Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. Background checks, assault weapons, magazines, armor-piercing bullets, all of that stuff. This is again a hot issue and something that really splits the two parties. How do you come out on that issue?
Well, the Second Amendment's very clear. Not a whole lot of room for interpretation. I think we need to protect individuals' rights to keep and bear arms, and I don't think they can be infringed upon by the mere whim of the majority, and certainly not by Congress.
Now, it has been interpreted differently in the past by the Supreme Court, right?
Well, I mean, there's cases out there, but I think what they're looking at now, in terms of controlling individuals' ability to buy ammo, the types of guns, that's all nonsense. The Second Amendment is protected, and it cannot be infringed upon.
The references in the Second Amendment to the militia, they don't have any bearing?
Look, I think, the Second Amendment it's the Second Amendment. It wasn't added on after the first 10, it wasn't number 10. It was something that's very important to the founders, and I think it's something that we can't take lightly. And that's, and of the amendments, that one is just crystal clear in terms of the intent and what the founders wanted.
Okay. Border security. Is that a hot issue for you?
It is. I think, this administration has shown that it has almost no willpower or incentive or concern about protecting our borders. And it's something that's a growing concern for a lot of Americans. I think we need to get back to focusing on the basics, taking care of America first, because it does have an impact on jobs and the economy, generally speaking. So, you know, as we talk about immigration in very broad terms, border security has got to be the first thing on the agenda.
President Obama is taking a lot of heat from the left over the deportation policy, 2 million people during his administration. Would you say that that's insufficient and that shows a lack of resolve?
I think he has a clear lack of resolve, and there's a lot of problems with the way the immigration process is being handled right now. The number of unreported aliens is huge, and it's growing. You know, during a time I worked in the U.S. Senate, I was a chief of staff for a senator, and so we had oversight over nominations. And at the time, just about a year after 9/11, there was a candidate up to be head of consular affairs at the State Department. Maura Hardy was her name. And a full year after 9/11, she came in and we asked her, you know, what went wrong with the visa program? How did those hijackers get into the country? What was the screening process? And she admitted that she hadn't even reviewed their visa applications. Yet there's clearly a big problem. And if that doesn't say our whole system is broken and needs to be reformed, I don't really know what does. And the EB-5 visa investor program, it's also been shown, Homeland Security just did a review on the program, and there's, you know, it's running here in Virginia, that it's susceptible to manipulation by, they're concerned about Iranian operatives getting in. But there's a lot of things that we need to do to fix our visa program, and we need to do border security as well. And then we can start talking about how we're going to reform the immigration system.
Now, the number of unauthorized immigrants has stayed pretty constant, hasn't it, for about since '06?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. They're undocumented. I mean, so a lot of times talking about the numbers is just pure speculation. I mean, we can make estimates and guess, but I don't think anybody can say for certain for precisely the reason that they're undocumented.
So you would assert that the numbers that DHS are giving out are at least suspect?
No, I mean, look, I mean, they're doing the best guess they can in terms of the number of undocumented workers. I'm just saying I don't know that we have as good a handle on it as we possibly could for the reason that they are in fact undocumented.
Okay. The defense budget, is that an issue for you, the size, the stature, or national security stature in the world?
Yeah, well, like I said at the beginning, I think it's one of the fundamental roles of government. And, you know, the nonpartisan CBO, Congressional Budget Office, that is, just came out with a report, I think, 2 weeks ago, saying that in the next 7 years, we're going to spend more money servicing our debt than we are paying for the military. And that, to me, is just shocking. Like, the single greatest threat to our security in the sense of budget and being able to fund the things we need to be able to fund is our debt.
Admiral James Mullen, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, said that America's #1 strategic threat is debt.
Yeah, well, and I agree. I think that's absolutely right. Defense has to be funded at a level that's going to allow the Defense Department to protect Americans here and our interests internationally, of course. We can, you know, there's room, I think, to, you know, fight a little smarter, make some changes so that we're more effective. But that's defense is a #1 priority for me. That's what government's supposed to do, is to protect us. So that you know, if I'm in Congress, that's going to be one of my top priorities, to make sure our defense is strong and robust and ready to handle any threat.
Okay. Part of defense is intelligence. So now we're into NSA, you know, Snowden, privacy.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I would have been standing right alongside Justin Amash, Congressman Amash from Michigan, in protecting the privacy. I think NSA has gotten completely out of control, especially when they're spying on Americans. I think we need to really restore our privacy, and there needs to be a lot more accountability from the NSA and other government agencies when it comes to spying on Americans. That's not their job. And I think we need to, you know, continue asking the hard questions about how NSA has been running its programs over the years. And the same is true for other intelligence agencies as well.
Okay. When NSA harvests metadata, the time, location of a call, the duration, would you consider that, harvesting that up as spying?
I don't think that, unless there's a court order for them to go after an individual, I think they've got to be very careful when it comes to, poking around in Americans' personal lives. I think it's a complete outrage that we're basically open to this kind of search and spying by our government. We need to restore liberty, and one of the ways to do it is get agencies like the NSA under control.
Citizens United, the whole role of money in politics. I mean, you're running for office. I'm sure you're on the phones. Are there any things about campaign finance and money in politics that you'd like to address?
Well, I think when people make a donation to a campaign, they're really investing in the democratic process and America. I think we need, immediate disclosure. I'm very concerned about the growth of super PACs and what they're able to do. And in some cases, candidates themselves lose control over an election when other groups kind of come in and, push their message. But I think the biggest thing is just immediate disclosure on all campaign spending, so everybody just knows where the money is coming from, and then they can make a decision on whether or not that's appropriate or not.
We've got about a minute and a half left. Rob, why don't you just tell people, kind of you're going off the stage, why they should vote for you, and what you want to do those first few months when you get to the Hill.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time for us to join the movement to take back our country. I think you've seen a great example in Scott Walker as he's taken on the corrupt unions. Tom Coburn in the Senate taking on some of the wasteful spending. It used to be earmarks, now it's just wasteful spending. Rand Paul protecting our privacy, fighting against Obamacare. And I think, if you listen to the establishment politicians, they always want us to wait for another day to fight the battle. We don't have the Senate yet, so we need a compromise, and we need to work out this deal and that deal. But I disagree. I think the time to fight is now, and I don't think we can continue to wait on this much more. Our government's going to be completely out of control. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, restoring liberty, defending our country, those are prime issues that we need to get involved with.
Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Again, the Firehouse primary is on April 26th, and I guess it'll be from like 10 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night. The Fairfax locations are at Centerville High School and at Langley High School. Rob, best of luck to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.